is Tracey-Ann and I research how students choose their subjects for school and what this means for science. There's widespread concern that too few students are choosing science and that this will lead to a shortfall in the important skills that we need in our modern society. This graph shows the percentage of students studying science in their final years of school. The graph finishes at 2007, however, little has changed since then, meaning that at the end of this year, almost half of all students in Year 10 are likely to drop science. My research aims to understand this decision. I spoke to 50 school students in years 10 and 11. I conducted 30 to 40 minute focus groups and I asked them how difficult choosing was, who they asked for help, the factors they considered, and their choice to study or not to study science. I then used the data analysis software NVivo to organise and categorise comments made by the students. This analysis led to 3 themes: student characteristics, subject characteristics, and choice process. Here's the first of the 3 themes, student characteristics, with 3 associated factors. I found that there was another whole group of factors around teaching that impacted on the student. This theme showed, not surprisingly, that students wanted to do subjects they were interested in and felt they could get good marks in. They also considered how much they liked how a subject was taught and who the teacher might be. This is interesting as they weren't told who was teaching particular subjects, so they had to think about who they might get. The second theme, subject characteristics, was linked to student characteristics. In fact, all the themes were highly linked. Again, there were 3 factors as shown and then a 4th, career, that had further issues associated with it. Students felt that some subjects were easier than others and they told me they didn't avoid subjects because they were difficult per se, but that the effort had to be worth it. Not knowing what they planned to do after school was an issue, as choosing subjects was linked to how useful that subject might be in a future career. The final theme is choice process, and you can see that many of these aspects are related to advice, but it's also about the complexity of choice. I think that there has to be a balance between what you're good at and what you love, because if you choose everything that you love, you might not necessarily be doing very well and it might bring your marks down. But if you choose things that you're doing really well in, but you might not necessarily love them, you are not going to have the motivation to keep doing well. So what does this all mean? My analysis of students' comments about how they chose their subjects and the factors they consider suggests students are making their decision in a 2-stage process. The first stage is emotional. In this first stage, students choose and reject subjects they liked or disliked. Most talked about those they disliked first. Indeed, they were quite animated, saying they would reject subjects they hated and never wanted to see again. They then included those that they liked or those they thought they would need, keeping in mind that most said they didn't know what they would do after school. In the second stage, they would consider advice and do some further research. This advice came from varied sources, but these needed to be unbiased. Teachers, sadly, weren't seen as unbiased, as evidenced by this quote. They pretty much say great stuff about their own subject. Like, I think that if you compare, like, that teacher who is saying how great that subject is in comparison to someone you can trust. So, with a view to how students choose their subjects, I then asked them about choosing science. And then I saw that there was this balance. They told me that science was inherently more difficult than other subjects, so it was harder to get marks. There was also a widespread perception among the students that science was only useful for traditional science-based careers such as medicine and engineering. Indeed, I asked one focus group whether science was generally useful in life outside of a career, and they looked confused. After a long silence, one girl tried to explain the confusion by stating, "If you look at things happening, You don't think that's the formula for photosynthesis? This suggests that in terms of return on effort, some students perceive science as overpriced and undervalued, of benefit only in stereotypical scientific careers and therefore less useful than other alternate subjects they see as easier. We can help students see that science is valuable, useful in a range of careers, achievable, that they can succeed in it, and empowering because it teaches life skills. For science is valuable, we can provide advice that science is useful in a range of careers and that science jobs are in demand. We know this needs to come from someone they can trust. Older peers would be a good place to start. For science is achievable, we can help students feel that they can be successful in science by showing the best face of science just prior to choice, teaching the fun topics and not scaring them off with overly hard tests just around subject selection time. And finally, we can help students see how useful science can be. It's empowering to be able to engage the world at a more complex level. Again, using older peers to speak on choosing science would help. And we could also spend more time explaining to students that science teaches the critical thinking skills that employers covet, or that it gives us broader perspectives on life. It's not just how to master a Bunsen or balance an equation. I have lots more research to do on this, but at this stage, what I am convinced of is that students understand how important this decision is, and that we can do something at the time that students are choosing their subjects to help them see how broadly applicable and valuable that science is in their life. So please, if you know a teen, don't forget to tell them just how wonderful science is. To find out more, please go to my website, freshmindsforscience.weebly.com, or just Google my name. Thank you to all those who have helped me with this study, and please share your love of science with a teen.